One of the most important lessons I've learned through training in the gym is that failure leads to growth. When I'm actually feigning in the gym, when I can't get that last rep, I failed to complete the rep fully, it's annoying. But it's me brushing up against that failure that leads to the growth. Because the next time I go to the gym and attempt that exercise and attempt that rep range, I've improved. I've become stronger. I've become more fortified. I've gained. It's a net gain. It's not a loss. It's the funny thing about failure. Now, I've brushed up against failure many times in my life before, especially in business. Now, especially when you're young, you need to have an appetite for risk. You need to try things. Obviously with a calculated risk, but you must try things. I've failed many times before. And today I want to talk about my experiences of failing in business. It takes a strong-spirited, courageous kind of person to just risk anything at all. Now it takes an even stronger person to have failed upon taking that risk, but to go through the trauma and the difficulty and the tribulation of what that failure has entailed, and to have the strength of spirit to keep moving forward. A couple of years ago, I was a car salesman. I started a company buying and selling cars, and I was making money. But then the profits dried up. Things got chaotic, things got difficult. Customers demanding for refunds of their cars. Taking losses on a lot of the sales of a lot of the cars. Things not going right my way. And it was a net failure. And I left that business. Next, I tried to open a tuition center for learning for children with a business partner, and the plan that his family members were going to run the place, and we just invest in a physical shop where people can come and do some learning, bring their children for learning. And we spent a lot of money getting this place ready, and a lot of expenses were put into that business. But looking back on it, there was no solid plan, and there was no customers, and the investment was wasted. And then I go back into cars, but this time instead of selling cars, I'm fixing cars as like a body shop, panel and metal repairer. Opened the garage for that, and looking back at it, I knew nothing about this business, and I thought I could just bring in some workers to fix the cars and just make money by paying off the workers, paying my expenses, and making a profit off the difference of what the customers who bring in their cars pay. Again with a business partner. And it failed. Expenses were high. Profits, and customers and sales and revenue, nowhere to be seen. Now hindsight is a funny thing. These were all a string of failures. And it's only in retrospect, when I'm looking back, I can extract the valuable information and the hard-earned lessons that I can use to my advantage moving forward. Lesson number 1. Never go into something you do not understand. I know nothing about fixing cars. You're opening a whole business, you're going to invest all your time, money and resources and mental energy into something you don't even know how to do and you have no inclination to do. Lesson number 2. The 5 commandments. So the 5 commandments are the sort of checklist or standard of requirements that a business should try as much as possible to tick off in order for it to succeed. And I got this concept from MJ DeMarco, who's a business author, highly recommended read, The Millionaire Fastlane and Unscripted. So the 5 commandments, what is one of them? The commandment of entry. The commandment of entry. The lower the barrier to entry, the more saturated that market is, the harder it is to make profit. In the car business, the barrier to entry was basically zero. Anybody can open an account and start going to buy from the auction. So you're competing against any Tom, Dick and Harry. And there is no speciality, there's no high barrier to entry where you actually have to be skilled or there's some sort of necessary and difficult requirements for you to get into the trade. Also another one of the commandments. Control. How much control do you have over the business? Are you in the driver's seat or the passenger seat? In the case of both the car business that I had and the tuition business, I had next to nothing, next to zero control. I was at the mercy of the auction. I have to go and buy cars at the auction, and I hope to God I can be able to get cars at a profitable price. The auction decides the prices basically. I have no control, and as you know, it's the price you buy at, not the price you sell at. So there's a lack of control there. The tuition centre, I'm not doing the tutoring myself. I'm relying on the family of my business partner to run the tutoring, to be the tutors, to make sure excellent service is being provided. There's a lack of control there. Another one, scalability. How scalable is your business? How much room for growth is there? And are you lying to yourself about the scale of the prospects of scalability or not? Also, there's different gradations of scalability. There is scalable, there's non-scalable, there's scalable quickly, there's scalable slowly. So that's another thing you have to look at. So far we've looked at scalability, control, entry, need. Okay, there has to be a need for what you want, right? And finally, time. Are you able to divorce yourself from the business? In all three cases that I mentioned to you of the business failures that I've had, pretty much every single one of them, I was basically bounded by time to these businesses, almost like a full-time job. And a lot of so-called businesses are just full-time jobs. They're not actual businesses because you're compelled, you're forced to be there every single day. If you're not there, the business can't run. That's not the true definition of a business owner. A true business owner is when you're able to divorce your time from the business, then you can consider yourself a business owner. So, I'm very grateful actually for these failures, even though they were very traumatic and difficult to go through and experience, but I've extracted the benefit of what I can from them. Especially now I'm recalibrated and I know what I want. I know I don't want to be tied down to a physical location. I now have a more proactive approach to trying to learn skills that will allow me to immerse myself in the online world where I can make money from anywhere in the world just by having a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection and making myself a person who's highly skilled and in high demand on the ever-growing online sphere, not somewhere where you're going to wake up every day and despise your day and you don't look forward to your day. You have to go to the same place every day. There's no variation in your life. What kind of life is that? For me, that's not the kind of life I want. We live in an extremely mobile world, a world of abundance, a world where anybody can learn anything. You just have to apply yourself. So I had to learn these lessons the hard way, and I'm proud of myself for having taken the risks that I did. And one final thing I want to mention to all you risk takers out there, for you who have failed, are currently failing, or will fail, which is inevitable to happen for aspiring entrepreneurs, is the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy states that because I've dedicated time, energy, resources, money into something, when it's clear that that something is no longer working, I keep doing it because I'm like, oh, I've invested all this money, all this time in it, it's too late to go back, or it's such a waste. This is a cognitive error in your brain. I don't care how much money you've put in. I don't care how much time you've put in. If something is not working, you've got to take the lesser of two evils, accept your loss, accept your mistake, and move on. And this is one of the most difficult things to do. Successful, unsuccessful, smart, dumb, poor, rich, everybody makes this mistake. You keep doing it just because of the fact that you've been doing it. So you keep doing it and you waste more time and you waste more energy when it's clearly not working. Now, the more you become cognizant of the sunk cost fallacy, the better it's going to be for you, because you're going to be able to make those painful, difficult decisions that actually lead to more long-term growth. Why? Because you're thinking of the future rather than sacrificing your future for the past, which is an absurd thing when you think about it, and it is absurd. You're instead booting away with the past and looking forward to the future. And look, the majority of people who do well in life, they've failed multiple times in the past. It's failure. There's the feedback. Failure is feedback. Failure is the world telling you what works and what doesn't. And over time, but this is extremely necessary. You have to learn from the failures. You have to analyze and reflect on your past mistakes. If you're not doing that, or if you're letting the failure get to head, if you're getting stuck in the past, there's no use for that. It would be a lifelong failure in that regard. But what we're trying to do is make failure, use failure to our advantage. And obviously the way to do that is to, and a book I actually recommend is a book called Failing Forward by John Maxwell. I read this book right in the midst and the peak and the belly of my failures, and it pulled me out of that traumatic part of my life and changed and reprogrammed the way I was thinking to be more positive, to start thinking forward, start thinking of the future, to start, you know what I mean? So failure is a necessary part of growth in the gym, in business, in life, in everything. So be aware of that. And trust me, failure, bing, success. That's what it's all about. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time.